next speaker is not here. He will be on Zoom. And his name is Gerd Leonhard. There he is.
There he is.
Very
nice.
Hey guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gerd Leonhard is a German futurist and a humanist.
The CEO of Futures Agency in Zurich. I think I may be offline now, but that's okay. He'll know. He's the author of Technology versus Humanity. He's a filmmaker who specializes in the debate between humanity and technology. Okay. Sorry, I think that's off. No. All right, never mind. I think I can speak up. This room was made for people like this. So, yes, Gerd Leonhard is a German futurist, and he has produced a lovely film called The Good Future, which he will be discussing and then screening for us. We're very lucky to have him. Gerd, welcome to our stage.
Much. Buenos tardes. Bonsoir. Guten Abend to everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thanks to Jose and also to David for bringing me aboard here. It's my great pleasure to talk to you today about the good future. You know, it's funny when I've been a futurist for 20 years, but recently I get a lot of weird answers about the good future. You know, I have people who are excited about the future, and then a lot of people who are worried about the future, not just because of COVID and the whole Corona thing, but basically what we're seeing is people are saying, well, the future is unlikely to be good because we have tons and tons and tons of problems and we can't collaborate. And the future is likely to be bad. So here's a great step from The Economist just from today, right? Showing how people, especially young people, have a lot more unhappiness. And even older people, our range, my range, right? I mean, it's strange. So I decided I was going to make a film about why the future is good. And as I like to say, why the future is better than we think. Because it seems to be sort of a theme that the future is going to not do anything good. And this worry is increasing exponentially as well. You could see that in the whole Facebook discussion and, of course, the Pandora papers and all these things. Basically, people
Recording
are saying, well,
in progress.
Things are not going too well. So first, the question is, what is good? And I was watching some of the comments before and some of the other speakers. William Halal, I really liked your talk, by the way. So the first question is really, what is good? And so here's a real summary, a quick one. I mean, I talked to a lot of people about this. The bottom line is 95% of us agree on a very basic level what good is, being able to have a family, enjoying basic human rights, having equal opportunity, finding happiness, not starving, not being sick, right? It's probably easier to define it as not than it is to define it as what it would otherwise be. But I think we have answers for what good is. And the question really is ultimately going to be in this outcome of the Corona crisis, as we're going to the rebound, we're going to redefine all these things. I mean, there's paradigm changes left and right now. And the big paradigm changes that people are no longer saying, well, you know, let's find out what the future will bring or what is possible, but they're asking the question of what future do we want? I mean, for a 25-year-old today, the COVID crisis is a bit like after World War II. It's a complete reset. And so we're facing a rapid paradigm change. I think this is a true historical moment of where we can really change what the world is. It's kind of like what the World Economic Forum calls the Great Reset. I prefer to call it the Great Transformation. Right? We're going to change, in principle, what we want, where we want to go, what we are, and which way we want to go there. And there's some very, very big questions. You know, this is a general moment of pivoting where everything is changing. So starting Corona, then climate change, and financial affairs, capitalism, and of course, ultimately equality. And very, very big questions arise. And I really feel this shift to what has been discussed for 30 years, people plan that profit. Now I'm going to put one more thing in there, and that's called purpose. People plan that purpose and prosperity. And that's, to me, the sort of new paradigm, the sort of sustainable capitalism that's evolving. And technology is making that possible, but in a minute, I'll explain to you why that isn't enough, why we have to go beyond technology, why we have to do a little bit better than that. You can see all these examples around us happening pointing the way towards a new kind of capitalism, a new kind of people, planet, purpose scenario, whether it's the vaccine debate about making that a Creative Commons, whether it's insurance companies, whether it's global corporate tax hike, and of course, the whole debate about Facebook. That's what it's all about, right? It's about what we want, not what we can have. And, Facebook has become a machine. And that is the problem. So very, very big things that are shifting all around us right now. And in this shift, there's three things I talk about a lot in the film and otherwise. And that's the power of technology, digitization, and science, of course. And then decarbonization, right? Meaning basically the complete radical shift to renewable energy. That's all happening in the next 10 years. The end of oil is near. But the most toughest subject really is reformation. We're going to have to change what we want from the world. We're going to have to change the logic, the operating system. And that process is happening right now. That's why I'm so happy you guys are doing this event, because we really have to change the underlying formation of what we want, where we're going to go, and what capitalism means and what money means. Because here's the thing, we can probably solve most of the practical parentheses problems that are outlined in the Sustainable Development Goals, like water and so on, with science and technology. Yes, we can. And we know that this is possible. It's been discussed all day long. But here's the thing. In the end, we are not going to solve social, cultural, political, human problems, even with the best AI, because the AI doesn't understand these problems. It is not feeling these problems. As I think somebody once said, algorithms know the logic of everything, but the feeling of nothing. And that's still very much the case. And even I think in our exponential singularity future, we're going to have to contend with human things like loneliness and being disconnected and inequality. There's no algorithm to fix inequality. And there certainly isn't a vaccine for climate change. So we're going to have to solve this ourselves. I mean, these are human tasks that we have to do. And, one of the key players, I think, in transhumanism once said, Newton Lee, he said, transhumanism will save democracy from its demise. I think that's pretty far-fetched, right? I mean, democracy isn't a machine, and it's not a bunch of data. And algorithms are not the same as organisms, in my view, and you may have different opinions. I think our biggest problem is that we're already starting to think too much like a machine. We have to become human again in a way that includes all the weaknesses and the things that we can't do. So here's what I'm a little bit worried about in this process of becoming more one with the machine in this evolution that you've probably been talking about all day long at your event, and what you hear being represented as our future, like Elon Musk says, we have to gear up so we can stay human. What's going to happen to the things that are not algorithms? I call them the androrhythms. These are curiosity, foresight, critical thinking, imagination, empathy. Are they just programmable? And this is really a key question. I don't think we should confuse the tools, the tech, or the science, that is, with the telos, nice Greek word, which means purpose and wisdom, and the things that we want. This has nothing to do with spirituality or any of those things. This is just the things that we want and the wisdom to get them. And sometimes we're confusing the tools like we have with social media. I mean, Facebook makes a great example for what happens when you let an AI take over, right? And the great saying by an Indian philosopher is, a purely intelligent creature, man or machine, and that would be the question about Zuck, right, is detrimental to society. And what we have in Facebook right now with all the recent revelations, clearly, Facebook is toxic. And why is it toxic? Because it's a giant machine. It's not enough humanity in there, and ethics aren't in there because ethics aren't part of what the machine can generate, right? I don't know if Zuck can generate that, but clearly here's the challenge, yeah? Technology gives us presence, many presents, and is a solution for many things. But if we do it too much and we overdo it, then it becomes a bomb. Too much of a good thing can be a very bad thing. That is true for smoking, eating, whatever you're going to talk about, coffee or whatever. That's also true for technology. Very, very important point. Not Steve Jobs, sorry. Moravec, Hans Moravec, a famous researcher, says whatever is very simple for a human is hard for a machine, and vice versa. That's going to be true at least for the next probably 20 years. And are we going to change that? And what does it mean to be doing the same thing as a machine or vice versa. I think our unique advantage is that we do things like a human. So when I talk about artificial intelligence, I really like the quote here from Stuart Russell, who is like the guy who writes all the AI books at UC Berkeley. And he says, it's about competence. That's what matters, not consciousness. And I think we should stick with that and stick with the competence and not move towards consciousness, which is the AGI that David was talking about earlier. I think that would be a very grave mistake. Because machines are binary. Until we get more quantum computing, that's going to remain the case. So it's zeros and ones, but humans are multinary. We're thinking on many different levels, right? We're thinking about passion, purpose, curiosity. Do we want to take that away? Do we want to amputate that so that we can become superhuman? Is that the destination, right? And are we going to reach the goal of people, planet, purpose, and prosperity if we don't keep what makes us human? Those are, of course, things that we have to think about in terms of which future we are going to and what we're going to do about AI. And basically with AI, I always say, well, let's really focus on IA, intelligent assistance. That's really where the low-hanging fruit is right now. Just make it smarter throughout, and we can save tons of money and tons of resources, and we can do climate changes and fix global warming and all of those things. But the question is, should we really not cut a line here to AGI? Huh? Would it not be sort of a good mix of being proactive and precautious if we were anticipating a global moratorium on AGI, and how would that work? Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, says technology can do great things, but it does not want to do great things. It doesn't want anything. It's up to us to have the want, the ethics, right? That's why I think we need an ethics council when we move into the future. On a local level, on the international level, on the level of our organization, your organization, in countries and globally. And lately I've been talking about the Humanity Futures Council because it's kind of enlarging beyond just purely ethical questions. As we go into the future of technology, big data, cloud computing, AI, clearly, technology has no ethics, and it shouldn't. And how would it? It doesn't exist. Would it ever exist? I don't want it to exist. Consciousness, human agency, ethics is knowing the difference between what you have the right and the power to do and what is the right thing to do. That is important to remember. Machines shouldn't be handling this question, in my view. That is a question that should be left up to us. Let me summarize. We are at a fork in the road moment, Buckminster Fuller, right? And I'm not talking about a moment, I'm talking about the moment. The next 10 years will define, period, what happens to us in the future. And it's not going to be a black or white definition. We're always looking for sort of like, yes, good or bad, but it's not like this. The future is going to be sometimes good, sometimes bad, and the decisions that we make as far as humans and machines are concerned and how we overlap, they could have both directions. Right? Technology is morally neutral until we use it. And we're going to have to make those rules and figure out the framework. So here's my vote. Proactive and courageous into the future, not based on fear, not based on fear-mongering, but with a certain amount of precaution and respect, and also with telos, with wisdom. Right? Ultimately, I think this is the ticket to our future. The things that make us human, they are very important. We shouldn't do away with them because they're inefficient and they don't scale, and we can sort of transcend our humanity parenthesis. We should seek to combine them with what we have outside of, intelligent assistance, AI, robotics, computing, quantum computing, voice, natural language understanding, and so on. Here's the ticket. Awesome humans on top of amazing technology. That is my ticket to the future. I sometimes call that progressive humanism. And that's kind of my story about the film and where it may take us. So now we're going to screen the film, and you can find it online at thegoodfuturefilm.com. But of course, it's also on YouTube and so on. And I do hope you enjoy the film, and let's switch to the live stream of the film. And I hope to get some replies from you on the channel, on the YouTube channel. Here's my Twitter logos and all the other stuff. So thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And the future is better than we think.
Thank you so much, Gerd. See you next time. See you soon in Zurich.
See you in the future. Are you excited about the future or are you worried? Are you expecting good things or more misery? These days it seems like all around us the future is getting bleaker and bleaker. Netflix and Hollywood are telling us about dystopian scenarios. The news are showing more reels of climate change disasters, economic issues, clueless CEOs and politicians, and of course in the end the robots will take our jobs and then they're going to harvest our bodies for energy. But despite all of that noise, I am here to tell you that the future is better than we think. I believe that human ingenuity, our science and technology, can and will solve most of our long-standing problems. I also believe that human kindness and the ability to collaborate will prevail. But we're running out of time because the future is arriving faster than we think. Actually, the future is already here, we just haven't paid enough attention. Science fiction is becoming science fact, and we are at a fork in the road. The next 10 years will bring more change than the previous 100 years. We must make the right decisions now if we want a good future. What is currently wrong is that what we've done for the last 100 years is no longer going to be suitable for the future. We've had a certain logic that has allowed us to prosper, but we've come to the top of the ceiling. We've had crisis after crisis after crisis and many issues that we're not solving. The current system is unfit for the future. In a way, you could say capitalism is unfit for the future. In the future, we're going to need to think wider, to think beyond profit and growth, to think about people, planet, purpose, and prosperity. We need a different logic so that our future can be good and can be developed for all of us. We have a chance now to get it right for our foreseeable future, or to let it go and end up in a bad place. So we're now at that point to where things that were science fiction are becoming very real, becoming science fact. Whether that's about language translation or robots or artificial intelligence. And that makes a big difference. Because now in technology, the question is no longer if we can do something or when or how, but why do we do something? And what do we want from it? So in just 10 years, we're going to be at an entirely different point of our lives where it's not about deciding if technology works, but what technology do we want, and is it going to be good for us? But before we talk about building the good future and creating the good future for us, we have to define what good is, what it means for you, what it means for us, what it means for our society. You know, in many ways, I think in our society it has been brought down to the definition of good being very simple, which means prospering and having things and having more things. And now we're finding out, I think, right now at this very moment, that we need a little bit more than that. We have to have a wider definition. So it's about other people, it's about relationships, experiences. Then it's about the planet. If we can maintain the Earth as it is going forward, it's about purpose, which means having a sense of what you are living for. And then finally, it's about prosperity, not just about profit. Right? It's a much wider definition. Let's have a look at some examples about how the good future could manifest itself. Imagine if you could eat meat without harming animals. I mean, I eat meat, but I do think that the future of food will be vegetarian. Some 30% of the world's global pollution comes from agriculture, farming, and livestock, and there's just no way that we can feed an eventual 12 billion people in this way. Fortunately, we are already inventing our future, with vertical farming, with plant-based meat, with meat from the lab, so we can solve this problem. The good future of food is sustainable, healthy, and affordable for everyone. Imagine if we can solve the world's energy problem. You know, I often feel really strange about how much energy I use, especially considering that I fly around the world to give speeches about the future. 75% of our current energy supply comes from oil, gas, and coal, and this is an existential threat to our future. Yet at the same time, we know that we have solutions like solar and wind turbines and renewable energies and of course next generation nuclear. So here's the question. We will have all the right technology, but will we have the will? Imagine if education isn't just about downloading information. When I went to university and music school, this is what I did. I downloaded things for later. But this will clearly not work in the future. There is too much information available, and after all, this is what machines do. They download information for later use and understanding. If you have kids, you have to think about this. Our kids have to learn how to do things machines can't do. The good future of education is going to be about lifelong learning on demand in all formats and at very low cost. Imagine if most of our routines can be done by smart software or machines. Imagine if work is no longer the center and purpose of our lives. I tried for a long time to use technology to work less, and it hasn't worked out. But this is what the future holds. Technology will allow us to move up the food chain, leave routines behind, and use intelligent machines to be faster and more efficient. If you work like a robot will take your job. In the good future of work, our ultimate job is to be human. Imagine if healthcare wasn't just about treating sick people, but actually keeping us healthy. You know, when I go to the doctor these days, I get a medication and that's the end of the story. We can do so much better. Technology can help us to use data to become intelligent, connected, holistic, and to think about food and lifestyle to go with our healthcare. When we look at the future of healthcare, it's going to be about being connected, customized, personalized, and affordable, about real healthcare, not just sick care. Clearly, we are now in a situation where we're realizing our old paradigm of profit and growth is ending, and business as usual is dead. Capitalism as we know it is unfit for this future. Now we have to design a new future based on a wider sense of goals. So what can business leaders and politicians do to create a good future? First, the stock markets have to embrace this idea of a wider target, of a wider goal of things that we want to accomplish. And every company has to be rated on performance on 4 issues, not just one issue: people, planet, purpose, and prosperity. Second, the story of the future has to be told by the people. the creatives, the society, all of us together, not just by technology companies who are inventing the future so that they can sell it to us. The third one is we need every politician and public official to have kind of a driver's license for a future, to understand it, to plan for it, to be ready for it, to lead us into a great future. They need to be authorized and taught and have a license to run us into that future. Fourth, we need a council of the wise people. Think of ancient Greece, Socrates and others, that talked about how we could exist in a new world. We need people like that to come together and tell us what are the options, which way is the best to do, and what goes beyond economics and helps us to go to the further human future. But it's not just up to the politicians and public officials to create a good future, it's also up to us. So what can I do and what can we do together to create that good future? First, we have to believe it's possible that we have a good future, because as we believe, so we'll become. And then the good future has to be a priority for us. We have to spend the time on understanding it, we have to learn, we have to study, we have to spend 1 hour a day in the future to help create it. I have to develop what I call the future-ready mindset. And then we have to make choices. Don't give your data to companies that will abuse it. Don't do business with those that will not create a good future. Don't buy stock from companies that will not create a good future. And finally, if we want a good future, we have to be good. The good future is entirely possible and it's our choice. The only question is, are you going to be part of it?
Excellent.